your girl Kava Queen, and today on episode 2 of Tanoa Talks, I have Jimmy Price, and we are going to get all into the science behind Kava and just talk all about it. So welcome, Jimmy. Can you tell me everything you do with Kava?
Sure. I own and operate, among other other moderators and admins, kavaforums.com, and I am a co-moderator on our Kava on Reddit, and I also moderate for the Kava Sewers Facebook page, the Kava Lounge. So
Yes.
yeah, there's a lot of Kava in there.
There's a lot. There's a lot of internet stuff behind Kava too, and I know the Reddit is really popular. Yeah, it has like what 10,000.
Quite a number. Yeah, quite a number of people, and it's the forefront of the questions in terms of what's on the top of someone's mind when they're drinking kava for the first time. Like, it's just like the visceral just stream of consciousness of people asking just the most basic questions, but it's necessary for someone to be there to answer those questions. So I feel it's important to have that sort of interaction with people. And I mean, it's really truly like, how long should I soak my kava? What can you drink it unstrained? Things like, I mean, it's just that sort of thing continually. And, that people, and I think there's just a type of person that likes to get, into these groups and just answer questions and just try to help people. And, that's what I try to attract into Kava forums. And if you have a knack for you wanting to help people, and if Kava helped you, that's kind of what everybody that has anything to do with Kava forums has in common. Every one of us started where either Kava saved our lives or changed our lives in a very, very meaningful way. For me, I got into Kava when I actually just I was in rehab. I got out of rehab, so I was doing the opiate train. I was on that sort of thing back in 2003, 2004, and got out, and I had this. Of course, I stopped using the opiates, and of course, I had just I had this gaping hole, I guess you would say, in terms of I had this like desire for something, in terms of like at the end of the day, to like calm myself down. And I was just kind of on a search for something just to, reduce the anxiety in my life, because I knew I had anxiety. I'd been clean for completely everything for 6 months. So I was just like, let's try Kava. Let's see about this. I read a bunch about it, and it was just like what I could find, which was on Erowid or bluelight.org. So there was not really that much out there in terms of information to look at. But from what I could find, I could see that it was pretty safe. I didn't really pay attention to the warning thing about the liver because, I didn't, I didn't listen to the government anyway. So why would I start now? But I can remember standing in the aisle at Trader Joe's looking at the Kava aisle, and I picked up, I think it was Kava Kings. Kava Kings, Kings Reserve 10, like 10 ounces of probably the most non-noble, just the most rancid, ratchet kava that you could ever find. But it worked. Yeah. It did something.
I bet it was expensive.
And it was expensive too. It was extremely expensive. It tastes horrible. But it was like my first sort of exposure, like, oh, hey, this is something different. This isn't just, another herb that, people tell you to take and it does nothing, or it's just placebo and you eventually end up convincing yourself you feel better because I spent all this money, I need to feel better. So yeah. It's one of those things that actually has a real effect, and that's a different sort of reaction that we're just not used to. I guess we're just so programmed to, like, everything is kind of a cumulative effect when you take a drink of something and you realize, whoa, hey, I feel a little different. I feel a little calmer, a little more I'm more talkative, more inclined to want to converse with people, things like that. I mean, it's a very interesting thing. And the way it was, and I guess I'll go back to the way it was sort of presented to me, was as a supplement. And it was always as a supplement. It was never this cultural thing. It was never, had no history behind it. There was no, it was just on the tin, like, from Fiji or from Vanuatu. And I was like, I've never seen it. I've only seen pictures of those places on the internet. I don't even know what those are. So
that's so interesting. Never thought about how when you're getting introduced to kava, if it's not by someone who's culturally aware, how shocking it must have been to find like, oh, this is like a really cultural thing. It's really deep, like that's awesome.
Well, it's even recent. I mean, I still every single day that I do the moderation, I keep up with kava forums, I
Yeah.
learn more about this plant. Like there is literally so much history and so much culture. And there's just, I mean, there's a different word for it in almost every part of every island. I mean, it's just, it is so wound into people's daily lives that
Yeah.
it was just a pill. I mean, it's almost like it's bastardizing such an awesome thing to like just smash it into a pill and say, here's something for your anxiety. When
Uh-huh.
it's like, you could experience say the anxiety portion and look at all the rest that comes along with it. It's not just a plant. It's not just a drug. It's more than that. And I think there's a lot of the papers and the research that I've been going through has kind of underlined that most people do not feel like that kava, if they have anything to do with kava, they don't feel like it's a plant. It's a more than plant status. It's got sort of a demi plant, sort of a god sort of way of looking at it. It's alive. It's a creation of our own hands in terms of a
Mhm.
living thing. So it's sort of
Yeah.
our creation. No, not our creation, but it's humans' creation.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's such a unique thing. It's such a different piece of intellectual property. It's just a fascinating topic. There's just a vast array of people that are in the industry. There's a vast array of attitudes in the industry. It really does cover every single facet of I think of human life when you look at kava and how it applies to people over the South Pacific and how it's slowly inching its way east into the United States, and people are realizing, hey, this has more value than just a supplement. This can actually change the way that I react to situations. Over time, it changed how I crave drugs. It completely obliterated my craving for I'm not.
Mhm.
I guess it's more of a not necessarily craving, but more of a impulsion, like that you have to do something. Like you don't
We
have a choice.
all
You got
substances us feel a certain way, and kava is just
yeah.
so. But
It,
going
it,
back to what you're talking about, because I know you're always answering people's questions about kava,
mhm.
and in your answers, you're like literally always there. I love that you like commit so much time to helping people discover kava, and also just like the science behind it is so cool. Like all your research, I'll be reading the papers. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Me not understanding half of it, but
Yeah, I don't either. I'll be honest, I don't either. It takes me sometimes days to get half of those papers just to like get some of the definitions for the words. I'm like, I have never seen that word before in my life. Like never. But I mean it's been fun, and actually started picking all this up. Um, we had a time during Kava Forum's history where there was a lot of Kava science going on, but
yeah,
on top of that, there was a lot of anger and bickering going on about those science topics. And it got to a point where it was like almost where didn't want, and no one wanted to touch it because it was like always going to bring up some sort of negative feeling. Somebody's going
yeah.
to get mad. So yeah, we moved away from it. And so I'm not sure what kind of kicked it off. I guess I figured it was time for everybody to, for us to, for me to embrace. That's for me to embrace what Kava like fully is, like the fully encompassing, um, complete picture. I believe that it would require that understanding, at least a tertiary understanding of how Kava really does interact with our systems and our brains and our body.
Well,
But
and as a kava drinker, you're generally like a more positive person. So I
definitely,
can't imagine all that negative stuff. I mean, egos and all that gets in the
yeah,
way of, but
it's got some dollar signs attached to it.
all that
But it's been fun. I get the opportunity to sort of watch what goes on and how things work in the kava industry, and we're
yeah.
we're watching several people get started right now, just from the ground up. And
Mhm.
we actually calm with Kava, which I actually meant to change into my Kava form shirt before we started this, but calm with Kava was a website that were selling just these extract drinks, and it looked like the website was made in Microsoft Paint. And that's when we found them before they even had picked stuff, and I hadn't even figured out what they were going to do yet. So
Yeah.
it's real fun to watch all these people go from just trying to put things together to really making something great. And we've
Yeah.
seen it over and over again. It's just it helps people. It moves people. It changes people's lives. It crushes alcoholism.
Mhm.
That was an unexpected side effect that I've noticed since we started all the platforms, was that just the sheer amount of people that would show up and talk about how they would drink every day, and then they started drinking Kava, and then all of a sudden they don't drink anymore, and they didn't want to stop drinking. They just stopped drinking. They had no more desire for it. And
And
that
it really does kill your desire to drink alcohol.
say
I
again.
can, it does kill your desire to drink alcohol. I've drank Kava for like 7 years. I'm only 25, so
Mhm.
the bulk of my early 20s, I was like, alcohol, whatever.
Yeah.
I got my.
Yeah, it really does. It satiates that need for something. It takes away that. I guess just for me, I have sort of an addicted past. I fought with opioid addiction for my whole life, on mostly off, but sometimes on. But in Kava has always been the thing that, like, it just rips that clawing and like the needing
Mhm.
desire for those chemicals, and it just kind of erases that. And I'm just like, oh, all right, more
Right.
people should know about that. Like, that was kind of my uh, the catalyst that started Kava forums, and my interest in all of it was the fact that I just was going day to day, and I was like, wow, all these like desires and cravings are gone, and like all I have to do is drink this, and then my whole ritual was I just drink it at night, and then I can let it work its magic over the night. And actually, I wake up in the morning, even though I still feel it, it works throughout the day and into the next. And
Mhm.
it sort of has this building up effect where it sort of allows you to put this shield on that sort of shields you from crap, from people, from like negativity and all this stuff. And it like just allows you to sort of have a little edge over letting things bother you. You can just be like, hey, you know what? Not today. And it gives you a choice
Oh,
instead of forcing you to. Exactly. You just kind of just let it go, where, you may have not let it go before. You wanted to keep it real, but Kava helps us just kind of chill out and just kind of
really that.
accept.
Have Kava made? Do you have any Kava?
I don't have any made. Actually, I have
Oh,
it made in the fridge. I make it every night. I have this weird thing. So, booah. I have this strange habit. When I first started drinking Kava, I was in NA, so I was in recovery, and I
uh-huh.
didn't want to relapse. I didn't want to feel any different. I didn't want any of that stuff. I just wanted the positive anti-anxiety effects that could follow me. So I
Yeah.
would drink it, and then I would run to bed, so I wouldn't feel it. So I mean, this sounds really weird, but
That's like
in my head, it was my way of not relapsing or doing, something that would change my mood or mind.
yeah.
And I could still go to sleep, and it helped me sleep. And it was sort of an antidepressant for me that I just took every day.
Yeah.
And it really helped my anxiety, and it helped my ability to deal with situations and people and all that things. So, I mean, it helps. But I mean, I drink it sort of similar now, but I'm not so much. I've kind of grown out of that. I don't worry about that anymore. I drink it
Yeah.
however I want to now, but I still do it every night at 40 grams. I'll cook up 40 grams and drink it right before bed, and that's
Nice.
my nightcap.
I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Kava, it's one of those things where it was like, I'm already this far invested, I might as well just go all in.
Right? Exactly. You're doing great. I love
And
you're
it's
so
fun.
Kava. It's amazing. I
It,
know I want to pick your brain about the science behind Kava. So can you explain what a kavalactone is and why we feel the effects on our brain when we consume Kava?
Kavalactones are the active constituents in kava. There are there's 6 that make up 96% of the kavalactone percentage in the kava root, and those are our major kavalactones. And each, now answering the second part of your question is actually very, very difficult, because each individual kavalactone does a little something different. And there's a twist on that too. Each kavalactone does something different if it's with or without the other kavalactones. So they have an entourage effect altogether, where they don't have this effect alone. Where I think I was reading one about kavain, synthetic kavain. They had a half-life, and it actually took around 2.5 hours for the body to digest this. But if you had that in the presence of a full spectrum extract, like a crude extract, something you would get normally just on the internet, something like that, it would actually cause the level to increase and take a lot longer for the kavain to be excreted. So it's like each kavalactone sort of plays off the other in terms of how it affects your brain and the way it acts in your body. I mean, it's very complex, and I say all this sort of just with only a little knowledge. I don't want to say that I'm not a neuroscientist or anything, so I can't tell you exactly how these things are working in there. But these papers do a good job of sort of going over the ins and outs of kava and how they pharmacologically believe it works. And it's pretty interesting. I mean, there's a lot of kava that does some anti-inflammatory properties that are quite pronounced, pretty good with people that might have arthritis. It could be very good for arthritis pain. It seems to have the same level of activity as Celebrex, which is really strange. So that's a popular anti-arthritis medicine.
I believe the kava goes straight to the bone. So when it comes to those kavalactones that cause you to have that anti-arthritis effect, it's because it's going like straight to your bones, right?
Well, what it's doing is it's inhibiting certain processes that cause inflammation in your joints. And when those processes are inhibited, it doesn't cause that damage. And that's what Celebrex does, is it prevents your body from damaging itself in that way. So it shuts down. It's what's called cyclooxygenase. And if those are inhibited, you end up inhibiting inflammation and pain. It's what ibuprofen does, but in a different way. There's 2 different cyclooxygenase enzymes. One is COX-1 and COX-2. COX-2 is the one that is more active with the pharmaceutical drugs, where COX-1 is more active with things like ibuprofen and aspirin, things like that. But it's on like the same level as some pain relievers. So that's a plus. I mean, we see a lot of pain relief from it. And I mean, the anxiety portion is contested. Generalized, and I think it's more related to the term. Go ahead.
So that, like, when you say that, that means just for people who are listening who don't know, kava is really good for anxiety, and it kind of helps you relax. But so with the science behind it, is it actually proven that kava does help with anxiety?
It helps with anxiety, but it has a caveat there. It helps with situational anxiety and things with like stage fright. If we're putting it just in a purely clinical sort of way, it's for situational anxieties, not continual ones, not like acute, continual, like, and that's this is still, there's a lot of science that's still on this, but the most recent science is showing that generalized anxiety disorder isn't necessarily something that can be treated. You would want to treat with kava. It's so complex. It's just, there's so many different facets to anxiety disorders that it's hard for them to really truly test anything on real anxiety. It's a difficult thing. And these researchers have, I mean, I guess probably 2 years ago, you could hear me say, I wish there was more kava research. There's no kava research. There are over 230 papers on kava. And I've cataloged and indexed every single one of them on Kava forums. If you go to the FAQ section under the Kava research.
And they were really interesting. And I'm going to put the for your website at the bottom of our videos when I post it on social media. So if you guys, want to go check out Kava forums and see kind of all the different things we're talking about, please go do, because there's just so many different, like Jimmy was just saying, articles about Kava and the research that actually has been done already.
Yes.
And then we'll better understand Kava. So
there's still more going on right now.
Right.
Kava is a very live, active subject. There's lots. Cancer is a big one. There's flavocavanes A and C have been shown to be as effective as some of the most like prominent anti-cancer therapies out there, but with far less side effects. So
wow.
It's got a lot of promise to it, and there's probably a lot of constituents of Kava that will end up being a prescription drug eventually, or some sort of therapy that's used.
Yeah.
Plants are awesome. Like plants really do bring us so many different things, and Kava has so many different avenues to go down for different cancers that it's really encouraging to see. You'll know that there'll be more history for Kava for that, but I think there's so much good stuff for Kava to come in the next few years that will be interesting.
Did you ever see that research paper on the mice that they did with lung cancer in Kava?
Yeah.
That was really interesting to me because they basically found that the Kava prevents you from developing cancerous cells in your lungs. And then I think they also compared it to men in Fiji who, smoke constantly with the consumption of Kava, and how it just
it's much lower.
Answer for us.
Yeah. As a much lower instance of Kava or a much lower instance of cancer in Kava drinking nations. And it's been researched, and it's a real thing. And of course it's not, they can't link it 100% back to Kava, because it could be the diet is different. Americans versus the South Pacific, I'm sure there's a lot of difference in diet there, but there's McDonald's, but it has a great number of benefits, and anti-cancer being one of them, and not even touching the surface. It's just the tip of the iceberg for Kava, and it has so many different applications. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's the best thing that you could choose in the range of different psychoactive things that you could choose from for a daily substance, for something to just drink every day. It is the most benign thing. Like, it really, truly, it's the one.
And like, people don't understand, like, Kava is like safe. I wanted to ask you, when you search Kava online, I noticed one of the first things you see is kind of like the liver damage stuff. Like, it's just like rampant. It's like all over WebMD. It's like, for me personally, really frustrating as like a Kava advocate, and something that's part of my culture is just to have this whole stigma around it with, correct me if I'm wrong, with not a lot of research to prove that it does cause liver damage.
Correct. That's correct. There is not. In fact, the damage, the liver cases that happened between 1998 and 2001. And it honestly, I don't want to say, okay, I'll say what I think I know in the most non-pointing finger sort of way. But I think that whole issue can be boiled down to moldy, or in some other way contaminated shipment, one or maybe even two or three. That could have been all it took to have sent to one of these processors in Europe to extract and distribute all these mycotoxins or whatever to these people to harm them. Does that happen today? No, it doesn't. We would all be lined up at the hepatologist's office, like trying to get livers. Like, I'd be on my 5th liver by now, for sure. Like, there's no way. And it boils down to extracts versus traditional Kava. When we decided that, hey, this is awesome, let's concentrate it down and put it in a pill, we took no consideration to what that might mean. All they were looking for were the kavalactones. I don't care where they came from, didn't care what part of the plant they came from. Didn't matter to them. It was just kavalactones, put it in the pill.
Yeah.
It was a mixture of dangerous methodologies and different uh, poor decisions that were made back then. There was no regulatory. There was just people saying, "Hey, yeah, do this. It's going to be better." That was it. There were no study. I mean, there were studies that they actually did studies on ethanolic extracts, and they do seem to be, for the most part, safe.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen anybody.
That's the alcohol extracts. Yeah.
Yes, that too. I mean, it's as long as it's not you're not guzzling alcohol along with it. Then
Exactly.
yeah, you're fine. It's.
That's what I do.
Go ahead.
I said that's what I tell people too. I'm like, as
Yeah.
long as you're not drinking constantly with kava, your liver's gonna be way better off with traditional kava compared to
Yes,
any.
absolutely. And I think there's a little misconception about alcohol plus kava, and I think we're kind of sort of getting to the bottom of it in terms of what may be causing these weird reactions with people and like hives and flushing and all these weird like get turning red is alcohol can stimulate histamine release, and so can kava. And alcohol and plus kava can cause so many different processes to slow down that you can get a histamine intolerance where your body is producing excess histamine and not able to get rid of it as well. So you break out in hives, turn red, get the bumps all over you, stuff like that. I mean,
That's like a common kava allergic reaction.
and that's the most common thing that I've seen.
Yeah.
The liver stuff, it truly, I mean, it's what they call idiosyncratic, which is completely like it's as rare as people dying from taking Tylenol or from not from like taking 1 or 2 Tylenol, or it's as rare as for people taking a prescription drug and it killing their kidneys or something like that. It's just there are individuals out there that have their genetics that express in a certain way that aren't the same, and they just don't work the same, and that's something you can never factor in. In terms of safety profile, kavalactones, any kava product, its safety profile, it's like I think the total number of people that actually received harm was somewhere in the number of 60. And the number that they could actually tie directly to kava with like possible, it probably is, was like 6 or 7 out of these. So we're talking about people drink this stuff every single day in to day. I mean, like across the world, South Pacific, all the time. It would just be an epidemic of liver failure. I mean, it wouldn't be just a one person here and there. It would be everywhere if it were a problem. And that's, I know that's sort of cheating by saying, well, if it's not, we don't see a big problem, there must not be one. But we don't even see it in the research. I mean, they have to, like, when they show evidence of hepatotoxicity, it's when they apply kava at like concentrations where you would have to take like a garden hose, ram it into your veins, and like just flow kava into your body. It's like, I mean, there is no way on earth that you could even approach those levels of kavalactones in your system to get that sort of harm. So it's sort of like you have to take it with a grain of salt. When you read those research papers, some of them they talk about harm at 200 milligrams per kilogram. It's like, whoa, hold on, 200 milligrams of kavalactones per. I weigh about 20, 30. Good Lord, that's a lot of, that's a ton of kavalactones. There's no way you couldn't do that. You couldn't get that much in your system. But I mean, it's just research, and what they're doing is they're taking slices of liver and they're like putting kavalactone on them, and they're sort of just kind of figuring out what happens after they. So I mean, it's way more complicated than that. It's just but I mean, it's in vitro. It's and a lot of it is in vitro in terms of the liver testing, and then we have to go into the in vivo where they've actually shown where flavocavine A will shrink colorectal cancers in living organisms by like 90%. I mean, it was just a ridiculous amount, and it wasn't a lot, and it wasn't like. Go ahead.
It's like actually the opposite. Like, no, kava doesn't cause liver damage. It like actually helps your body
Yep.
cleanse out all of the toxins that are inside of it.
And that's very true, especially with the fact that kava is a pretty stout diuretic. It gets the water out of your system. So if you've got anything water soluble that you need to get out, kava
Yep.
will do it.
Yep, that's true. So true.
Mhm.
I love that. What's your favorite kind of kava?
My favorite kind of kava, oh boy, I think Hiva is my favorite. Hawaiian Hiva is my favorite strain.
Yeah, out of my freezer.
Yep. Oh man, that's some good stuff. Mahakea is a close second. It's a perfect balanced sort of. It's strong, but it's not either. It doesn't like put me face down on the couch, and it doesn't make me like
Yeah.
up and can't sleep. So it's a really good right in the middle, just a really powerful punchy kava.
Yeah.
Right now,
I
I'm
haven't
drinking. Go ahead.
I haven't had um I haven't had dried Hawaiian kava for so long. I miss it. Which
Lucky.
I don't
I'm
know what I'm here.
I'm sure if you called up Gourmet Hawaiian Kava, I'm sure Chris would send you some.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, he
Uh,
makes good kava.
yeah. Do
But
different cultivars of kava produce different effects? I know earlier we talked about you were talking about how different kavalactones react with each other.
mhm,
So
yes,
do kava, is it like, do cultivars do different things to your body?
absolutely, absolutely. And I'll take the two strongest examples. Say like a moi, Hawaiian moi,
Yeah.
and it's a very noble kava. And then you have your say PNG Isa. It's a questionable noble kava depending on how you prepare it. But
Yeah.
the chemotypes, you'll see the difference in the chemotypes side by side. A noble chemotype will say 4-2-6 or 4-2-3, something like that. But the four is
And that,
generally at the very front.
that's
And
the reason kavalactones, right?
yes, yeah, I'm sorry. That's what we call a chemotype. And a chemo, sorry, I just jump right into it. But a chemotype is the number that designates those six kavalactones, those major kavalactones in their percentage ratio, in a reducing percentage ratio. So if it's a four is kavane. If it's a 4-2-6, that would be kavane is the highest percentage. The two is dihydrokavane, and the six is methysticin. So you sort of go down in amount as you go down the number, or as you go down the chain there. So a normal noble kavas usually have a 4-2 something. And what you'll normally see is the 5 really far away from the 4 in a noble kava. And over the centuries the kava has been cultivated by man and selected for its psychological effects that they found that were beneficial over time, where wild kava, the 5 would be way towards the front. Same with a lot of non-noble kavas and medicinal kavas, they'd be towards the front. Over
Yeah.
time they've bred that out, and they've pushed that 5 towards the end of that, and it made it less like the least amount of kavalactones generally as you see with the 5s. But with things like P and G, so you'll see the 5 start to creep up towards the top.
Yeah.
And of course, that really depends on how the plant's harvested and cleaned and peeled and all that stuff, because it makes a big difference in the chemotype of things like that. But they do, each different strain will have a different chemotype. So they'll have a different percentage of those kavalactones, say kavane, dihydrokavane, methysticin, let's see, yangonin, desmethoxyangonin. And so, I mean, it'll be a little different in each plant. And in some plants, the cavalactone concentrations are so different that you'll notice it. You'll feel like the 2, which is a DHK, is a bit more sedative, and it's a bit more anxiety relieving, and it's a bit more of a creeper. It takes a little bit longer to come on. And so you'll see if that 2 is closer up to the front, it'll be more of a sedative kava. If that 4 is up and prominent in the very, very beginning, it generally will denote a kava that's pretty euphoric and, all around just kind of what we would consider a drinking kava. And that's kind of how they've been selected through the thousands of years that they've been planted and grown and drank. That 5 has been pushed towards the right, which would be the least amount of kavalactones, where that 4 has been featured and pushed towards the front. But that's not a rule. There are medicinal varieties that have different effects that
Yeah.
are, a little bit less noble, but more still drinkable, but they have a specific purpose. And there's a lot of Kava knowledge that I truly just don't even have access to. Just like that, medicinals, I have no idea. I have no idea how they're used. I just know they're medicinal. So it would be really interesting to know how these Kavas are used in a medicinal manner,
Yeah.
per their varieties. Because I understand using Kavas in different ways for different ailments, but different types of Kava for different ailments, that's really specific.
Yeah.
And I would love to know more about that, but time will tell. We'll see what happens.
It's easy to. I've been pretty lucky because I met this guy from Molokai, and he kind of like explained to me all the different ways Hawaiians use kava, and so like I feel like you should go to the islands or something. You got to go
Yeah,
talk to
I need to.
to the chief.
Mhm. I seriously do. I think there's several people I could go probably talk to at any islands. Just I just
Uh-huh.
need to go out there. That's been I guess that's my biggest goal is I'm definitely going to visit all these places because through the years, we've been doing this for about 8 years now, and I've
Yeah.
made some pretty good friends in all these different places that I've never met. I've never met them. So yeah, that's one of my like bucket list things is to get over there and just
Oh my gosh, we have the same bucket list.
yeah, I need to. It's something that's been I've just been it's been needing or gnawing at me for a while, and
Uh-huh.
I'd love to visit Hawaii and visit Chris to just have. I just want to go somewhere where someone can just teach me how the kavas just show me what to do, and I will break my back trying to do. I'll do it. I'll do everything. I just want to I want to get my hands dirty with it because all I see is this pristine ground powder that shows up in my mailbox that's perfect. I never see the dirty, difficult side of it. That's all I want. I want to see kava for what it is. I've never seen a kava plant. Never in my life have I seen a kava plant. Yeah.
The first time I saw a kava farm or like a kava plant, I was so stoked. It was just, because we both like you feel so connected to kava, but when you see that plant,
Mm.
you know, you're in a place like Hawaii and it's like, oh my God, like this is really kava. Like it's
I'm
really
gonna
here.
have to like go like this because I'm probably gonna cry a little bit, most likely, when I see my first one. I love that. It's a great plant. It doesn't harm you. Like
Mhm.
any other plant has these big caveats like of, oh yeah,
Yeah.
you can do that, but here's what you're going to give up.
Yeah.
Kava is just like here, but it doesn't, the funny thing is it's not for everybody. Like
Uh-huh.
I've seen that there's kava that just not, doesn't, fit for everybody, but there's also those people that is like, wow, you've been searching for this your whole life. How's it taking you this long to find it? Like,
Yeah.
there's been one of our members has gone through a full on cancer, stage 4 cancer. Wrote me messages talking about how he wouldn't be here in 6 weeks, stuff like. And it was
Oh my
gut wrenching what this guy had gone through, and he drank kava through the entire thing, and that's another testament to how kava is not harmful. He drank kava through cancer and cancer treatments. But he credits Kava with so many different things, and he's like, I don't think I would have made it through it just for his. He said just for his mental status and just for his his outlook on things. Kava like kept him moving forward in the right direction. So it has some
it does.
major impacts, and that's one of the best things about being, I guess, where I sit and watch these platforms is see people being like, whoa, this has been such an awesome thing in my life, and they want
Yeah.
to tell people about it, and like that's the real payment in all of it. Like is just knowing it's helping somebody, seeing it help them, and like it just money doesn't, you could never buy that. Like that's just
I'll
not.
buy it. You
You
cannot.
can't. It's so awesome to see, and that's another thing. Like Kava Forums doesn't make money. We don't sell advertisement. We don't sell any sort of like space or to get in or anything like that. It is purely a community sort of thing. It's not I wanted a place where you weren't bombarded with ads, you weren't controlled by like a big corporation. Facebook wasn't looking at your posts when you did it. It's not on Reddit where you can't have categories. So it's sort of it's like it's a deferment from the normal, but in a way that we can sort of control how much or how much it bothers us, because we don't want the ads, we don't want we don't want all the spammers. You can get rid of all the spammers if you control your own platform. It's just people that love Kava, and we used to have a donation thing, but it's like Kava forums, the actual hosting for Kava forums, and I'll say it because it's hilarious, it's $17 a month. So it's not breaking the bank. So it's not like, it's not an expensive thing. It takes a lot of time. It's a very expensive thing personally, just from your time and all the attention that you have to give it. But in terms of money, it's not expensive. It's just, it's an awesome hobby. People benefit. They get out of addictions. They get out of alcoholisms. They get out of bad relationship. I didn't even know that would be a thing for it, but I've seen that happen on Facebook. But I mean, it's such a great catalyst for change for so many people, and it just needs to be more well known. I mean, it's still sort of.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Like, that is so interesting that you put out all that research for free and just you want everybody to learn about Kava. I feel like I was reading comments in the Kava Lounge and everybody was just so grateful to you because you're always there to answer questions. And that page really is just like, it is time and effort and energy, and like everybody sees that. So I just want to thank you for helping educate people on Kava, because it's really important, to people like us who love Kava. And grateful for you.
Whatever I'm learning, whatever you're learning with me, because I usually don't know the things that I'm putting together as I'm putting them together. So we're learning together. So that's sort of the thing. We're all kind of in this together. We're all important pieces of this puzzle, and all this information should be absolutely available to everyone. Like that Kava should be everything, like the good and the bad, no matter what it is. Like it shouldn't be sugar coated. It should be available. So I don't believe in it.
The Kava Lounge, I noticed, has so many people with like we talked about earlier, like the common questions. Like that page is like crazy for people who are like, how do I Kava?
Yep. How do I soak it? My favorite one, I think, was a guy said something to the effect of, all right, so I've added the milk in my Kava and the lemon juice. What do I do now? It won't strain. It's like, oh, you make cheese curds. Oh God. In Kava. That's awful. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, it is. Let's be real. As somebody who's answered 10,000 questions on Kava, I feel you. Might as well be entertaining.
Yeah, it gets to a point where it's like there's like this level where all the normal questions annoy you, but then once you get past it, it's like, you know what? These people need help too. They're beginning. Everybody starts at zero, and these people these people could turn out to be like our best friends, or like are just the people that stick around forever. So I always think about it that way. These people could be awesome members of the Kava Lounge or Kava forums or Kava Reddit. So I mean, I try to like look at it that way, and the same with vendors. It's like I don't know where they're coming from, and they could turn out to be the biggest vendor with the biggest vendor in the world. I don't know. So I mean, it's always I always try to look for the best and the members and the people that show up, because what else are we going to do? Because there's a lot of good people out there, and I think finding Kava has been a kind of a theme. They seem to be pretty drawn to Kava, and especially in America, it seems to be a new sort of hip sort of thing, and I hope it continues to catch on that way, because it needs to be. There needs to be less people out there drinking.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, Jimmy, that was 50 minutes.
All right. I could talk for like 5. I do 4 hours a week. So
like on just with Kava stuff? Like, do you guys have Zoom meetings every week?
Yep, 2 hours a week, at least 2 hours a week, or 2 hours every Wednesday, and then every Saturday. And Wednesday is getting pretty popular. And we had, and you're more than invited to come. We have usually the Kava is there. We have several vendors there. Sometimes that Henry from the Kava Society is there. It's in and out people for the 2 hours, and sometimes they'll go until 4 a.m. in the morning. So I just leave and I'll turn the host over to somebody else and say, go at it, and I'll go to bed.
Where do you live?